Ahead and get started for the sake of respecting everyone's time. So this is session 4, living the life you want on home hemodialysis. So welcome. Just by means of introduction, my name's Adam Wilson. I am a nurse, hemodialysis nurse by background. Spent a lot of time in the hospital as a nurse prior to that, but then I've been in hemodialysis for quite some time. Since this session is on hemodialysis, I'm really not going to answer or entertain PD questions because, quite frankly, I have very little PD experience. So this is primarily going to be focused on home hemodialysis. So I hope you're in the right session. If you wanted the PD session, that is in the other session that's running concurrently with this one. But I've worked for a number of providers, a lot of the Fresenius, DaVita, US Renal, DCC, DCI Concerto, all the big boys out there, the big players. So I can speak anecdotally from a lot of those different providers. But right now, I am the national director for USA Home Dialysis. And throughout the sessions today, there's been a couple of shout outs to that entity. And that is the entity I work for. Again, I'm the director for the company. And so I can answer a lot of kind of 30,000 foot view questions, as well as the detailed, more intimate questions that you guys have, if you have any, about my company specifically. So again, the title, guys, of this session is Living the Life You Want on Home Hemodialysis. And really the two words I want to kind of camp out and underscore there are you and want. Living the life you want on home hemodialysis. So that's really what this is all about, is what are you looking for? What do you want out of your dialysis experience? Do you find it in center? Are you finding it at home? Are you still searching and you're not sure where to find it? So I kind of want to tackle all those questions if I can, and I'll do my best to speak anecdotally from my experience. Also, as a provider, I want to give you some unbiased information as well. But if you've got questions specifically about the platform we use, so we exclusively use Tableau, just to be honest with you. I can answer some questions about the Next Stage platform as well, but our company has contracted with Tableau. So I don't work for Tableau or Outset Medical, but we use their equipment and we use their platform. And I'm very, very familiar with Tableau and can speak to that just to kind of help answer any specific questions you may have about Tableau. So I don't see any of the panelists joining us here. So I'll just start asking some questions, and you guys can post questions in the comment section now, and I'll do my best to get to them. Since I'm paddling a single canoe here, if you guys scroll down below my screen where you see me, on my screen, it's the white section. You can look down there. My get in touch contact information is right down there. If you guys want to shoot me an email, my email address is on there. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of HHD Tableau posting on LinkedIn, so feel free. The information is right down there. But here's a question I want to kick off this session with. And some of you guys in the session now, if you're on HHD, please chime in your comments in the chat here. But what do you think are the most important factors to being successful with home dialysis? And so that's kind of a great question, I think, to kick off the session here. You know, just because somebody wants to go home on home dialysis does not mean they're going to be a successful candidate, right? And so I'm sure with the size now, we got about 98, 100 people viewing here. Some of you guys are on dialysis now. What makes a successful home dialysis candidacy? You guys can start chiming in there. I'll give my, again, anecdotal answer here from what I've seen on our platform with the.
Oh, here I am. I'm in.
Oh, hey, Vanessa just joined us.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
Okay.
Vanessa.
Hi, Adam. Sorry, I was having a lot of technical difficulties, but I could hear you.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, Vanessa, let me read your bio real quick, and then we can get into some interview questions with you. And I actually just asked the chat room here, question number 3, what do you think are the most important factors to being successful on home dialysis? But let's get you introduced here real quick. So Vanessa Evans has been on dialysis for over 26 years and lives in Boston, Massachusetts with her husband and 2 sons. A passionate advocate for the last 14 years, Vanessa does not let her diagnosis slow her down. I love that. She works full-time as a director of advocacy and communities for FMCNA. Vanessa has a master's degree from Emerson College and a BA, Bachelor of Arts, in Political Science from UMass Amherst.
That's right.
So welcome, Vanessa. And if
Thank
you don't
you.
mind, Vanessa, I'm going to hand the microphone to you right now. And we're going to kind of launch the discussion with this question. What do you think are the most important factors to determining if someone's going to be successful with home hemodialysis?
Well, that's a really good question. And unfortunately, I think we do a little bit of painting a picture for somebody before they're allowed to pick for themselves, right? And so I refer to my own story, where 8 years I was in center and I wasn't talked to about home dialysis, whether it was PD or HHD or really any kind of dialysis. And even this day and age, I see quite often HCP, and people might say, oh, they're not a candidate for home. They don't have good support, or maybe they don't speak the language. Right? Or there might be different comorbidities that for whatever reason, they might not, quote unquote, be a good candidate for home. And as an advocate myself and as a patient, I really think that that's a discussion that you need to have with your patient. And it's not a one and done. I know many patients, including myself, a lot of times it takes a little bit of conversations with the advocate, right? Or with the patient, I should say. So I talk a lot about, Adam, about being a champion for your patient. And so the question is not really, do you want to do this at home? Yes or no? But it's more about, hey, have you thought about doing this at home? I think you'd be a great candidate. I'm going to be here for you. We're going to do this together. We're going to learn all about the different modalities, the pros, the cons, what it's going to be like when you do it at home. I'm going to connect you with a peer. I'm going to connect your family with people and resources so that it's a holistic conversation that everybody is talking about together. And it's not a one-sided frame, whether the physician thinks you can or cannot do it, or even the patient for that matter. I know that I wanted to do home, but for 1.5 years, I put it off. Why? Because, and I heard you have the conversations earlier with Eric and team, I was scared of cannulation. I was worried about supplies. What if there's an emergency? There's a lot of questions that I didn't understand. So when you ask me the question, who makes a good candidate? I don't think it's so black and white. I think it's really more of a conversation that you're having with your healthcare team and your family. And it might take time. It might not be something that you answer right away.
Fantastic. For those listening, I hope that struck some chords with some of you. I'm seeing answers, home environment, great home environment, acceptance of your disease, being an advocate for yourself. And again, we're talking about what makes a good home candidate. Just reading through some of the answers here and some of the questions. Having a strong support system, absolutely. Having a good caretaker.
And Adam, if I can talk to that strong support system, that is so key, right? And there are often times where you hear maybe a patient wants to go home, but the family doesn't want them to come home because they don't want them to bring the equipment at home. They don't want to be responsible for them. They would much rather that they go to a center, they do their dialysis, and they come home and like it's kind of washed clean. And so I say that we need to look at creative solutions. I say that we need to invite the family in to meet with other families. Maybe they could even see photos of a family member's house, or better, go to another family's house if they allow it. So I think we need to be a little more creative in our approach. And it's not so black and white. And because when you bring dialysis home, everybody's doing dialysis at home, right? And so my kids grew up with me doing dialysis. My husband and I last night, rotated some of our supplies, right? And so it does become a family event, but I also think it's just as important for the family and the patient to understand the why. Why would I want to do home dialysis? And that has to do with maybe a longer lifespan, depending on where you land and what your prescription is. You may be able to work again. You may have other dietary restrictions that you had in the past that you don't have now. We heard from the dietitian before. And so it's not only about bringing it home, but it's also about the why you're doing it. Nobody talked to me about the why. Nobody told me about, that it could affect my heart, or about my lifespan, or about blood pressure pills and things. And so again, it's this holistic approach of understanding not only what is involved, but why you may want to do this. Nobody knows you better than you, right?
Yeah.
Or your family. And so
Right.
do I want to stick my arm out and let other people do it for me, which I did, by the way, for 8 years, and I turned the other way? Or do I want to control my chronic illness and not let it control me? And I think it's a way that we have to change the way we think, the mentality, the way we think. The model is not set up for us to take control.
For those of you who've been on this platform most of the day today, this has been quite a remarkable kind of hornet's nest of information. It's almost like a flea market, right? This has been a wonderful flea market of all kinds of resources, information, how-tos, what do I need to know, tools that can equip you, the different access types, different platforms, what are some good questions to ask. But I think Vanessa just touched on kind of the core heartbeat of what many of the patients who have spoken on these platforms today have shared, and that's, do you really want it? That determination, that drive, what do you want? And what do you want to control? And really the encouragement here is, it's your life. Take control of your life, get invested in your healthcare, get invested in your plan, get invested in your prognosis, and start taking ownership and responsibility over yourself. And that's kind of what I hear, and what I'm gleaning from Vanessa here is if you don't have that, and here's just a little helpful hint here. If you don't have that drive, and you can't answer the what I want out of my therapy moving forward, and what do I want out of life, and then the home platform might be a struggle for you, because it requires a lot of autonomy and independence and self-motivation and drive. While you do have a care team, a nephrologist and nurses that are coming alongside of you with support, if you lack that self-motivation and drive, and you can't answer that, why am I really doing this? What do I really want? I think in that realm, you're going to struggle as a patient. So let's just move on from this question. Let's go to another one, Vanessa. Right now, it's just you and I, my dear. So we're going to keep cranking
we
through
got
these.
this, Adam. I see that there's a question here. April asked about, she asked, how long does it typically take for patients and care partners to get the hang of it? So a couple of things. So April wrote caretakers, and I'm not a fan of the word caretaker. I really love to see it more as a partner, because I do think that if you are doing everything for the patient and they're just kind of sitting back and, getting all the care, if you will, and not taking an active role, it can be a burden for that partner / caretaker. So I love to see kind of thinking about, like, what am I going to do, the patient? What are you going to do, the care partner? And understanding roles and responsibilities. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, she asked, how long does it take? I'm going to be honest with you, April. The first 6 months that I was home, I was like, what the heck did I get myself involved in? And I was somebody that wanted to go home. But kind of what you alluded to, Adam, in the beginning, it's very overwhelming. There's, machine, there's supplies. You are now the patient, the nurse, the tech, the janitor. You're kind of doing everything at the beginning. But I tell patients, give it that 6 to 8 months, because what ends up happening is, it's like a baby. You start to get into a routine. You learn how to do things. You feel so much better, honestly, within the first week. I did more frequent therapy, and I do more frequent therapy. I was able to get off blood pressure pills. I found this new energy that I don't think I realized I didn't have. And so while it's not all unicorns and rainbows, I'm not going to pretend that it is, it's important to lean on your healthcare team and allow yourself time to get a hang of it. I think if you kind of quit before that 6-month time frame, you're not giving yourself, the adequate adjustment time. And it looks like we've got a new friend joining us too. So I'll let you introduce Neil. Oh, he was here and gone.
We had Neil. Hey, Neil. So are you on mute? I can see you. We can't hear you. There might be a red line through the microphone. Whoop, now you're muted.
Now you should.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. We're good.
Got you now. So guys, let me introduce Neil Lentz to you. So Neil, I've got your bio here. I'm going to read a little bit about you and brag about you. So Neil Lentz is a Navy veteran and former federal police officer who experienced kidney damage in 2013 and ultimately had to begin dialysis in 2020. In anticipation of needing dialysis, Neil had fistula surgery in 2019, but that early preparation did not mentally prepare him for the assembly line experience he faced in center. Neil self-advocated, switched clinics, and ultimately began doing home hemodialysis with NextStage by the end of 2020. After struggling with machine issues, Neil made the switch over to Tableau hemodialysis system in August of 2022, where he has currently been using ever since, which he's been currently using ever since. So Neil, welcome to the session. And if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and launch another question your way. Is that okay, Neil?
That's fine.
All right, let's give you this question, my friend. What advice would you give to someone who's not receiving support from their current in-center treatment system or not getting access to what machine they want to use? What are some resources and support you'd give?
I would start asking why. When I first started dialysis, I wasn't even aware that home dialysis existed. Yeah. I was totally in the dark. I had a unique situation that I was let in about home dialysis, and I took them up on it, and I've been doing it ever since. But I know every NextStage clinic and every Fresenius clinic, every DaVita and every US Renal or whatever, they have access to this stuff. It may not be the clinic you're in, but somewhere in their system, they have it. And that's another resource is ask your nurse, ask your social worker, ask anybody in that team to put you in touch with somebody that can give you some information on home dialysis.
Vanessa, anything you want to add to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that you need to speak with your care teams and inquire about home therapies and understand what that looks like for you. In some cases, and this would be unfortunate, you might have to drive a little bit to get the training that you may want and need. However, I would say I think it's worth it to be able to drive and get the training that you need in order to be able to do your therapy at home. And there's a lot of benefits then when you go home and you're trained to do home, depending on PD or HHD, but you're not going then to a clinic, right? Once you're trained frequently, you're doing your therapy in the comfort of your own home. And that makes a big difference for patients, not only regaining kind of their freedom, but being able to go back to doing things that they love and being able to dialyze when is right for them. And that's important to know that you can dialyze solo. You also can dialyze nocturnally if you have a care partner. And so those are great options that patients should know about, that you can go and see what's right for you.
Yeah. I have a true confession here. I was a in-center dialysis nurse for many, many years. And very rarely did the phrase home dialysis ever come out of my mouth or the mouth of our staff. So we just, I don't want to speak for providers that I've never worked for, but from my experience in the Chicago market, we very rarely promoted it. We very rarely talked about it. So Neil and Vanessa, this question is for both of you. When you guys finally got home and started on your platforms, your dialysis HHD platforms, what were the biggest surprises or blessings you experienced once you got home and were up and running?
I'll let Neil go first.
Well, it's kind of scary at first when you first get home, because here's this new thing. And yes, you've been trained on it. You've done who knows how many treatments. You've been signed off on the machine. Your nurse thinks you're able to do it. She's watched you do it. They've come to your house and watched you do it. But you just, you have to kind of, work yourself into it and keep at it. And it becomes very easy. It becomes pretty much just part of your day. You don't even think about it anymore. And you're able to do a lot more that you're not stopping your day for 5 hours to go to the clinic. You can do everything at home, and it just makes it so much better.
And Vanessa?
So I agree with what Neil is saying. I think for 8 years I was in center and didn't know that there was another way. I've been doing dialysis now for 26 years, the last 18 years at home with the next stage machine. And for me, it certainly gave me total freedom to be able to travel, to feel better, to be able to have less dietary restrictions, because I do more frequent therapy. And I think that makes quite a difference. And I think it's a sense of empowerment, right? For patients to feel that they're able to get their life back and to be able to work or do hobbies or sit around the house and watch TV, whatever it is. By the way, one of the surprises, you asked, what are the surprises? I'll tell you what I love. I love that I'm in my home. I turn on the TV. I watch whatever, Netflix or whatever show I want to watch. I can turn the heat up to 100 degrees if that's what I'd like to do. Meanwhile, I sweat everybody else out. But I do. If my son has a game and I can do my treatment early, I take the machine with me when I travel. So we go and we visit friends. Sometimes it's just putting in the car, and sometimes it's putting it on a plane. And so I feel like other people. Yes, I have to pause and do my treatment. So I'm not quite like everybody else. And, sometimes I'm tired and things, but it allows me to be the best possible version of me that I wasn't able to be when I was in center, because I had to adhere to the schedule of in center. But more importantly, I think I'm around 26 years later. I just sent my son to college, right? Yeah. And I really owe that to doing dialysis at home more frequently with the next stage machine. That really, for me, has been something that I can say has helped me greatly, and I continue to be there for 26 plus more years. That's what I would like. I'm highly sensitized. It's hard for me to get a transplant. And we always talk about transplant being the gold standard. And while I think it's an amazing place to be, it's also another modality. And just recently I was at a conference and people were saying, oh, well, if a patient gets to dialysis, that's a failure. I don't think it's a failure. I don't think it's a failure. I think it's another modality, and it's finding the right space for the patient and helping them, supporting them to live their best possible life.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going to address one thing that's been in the threads, and then Neil, I have a question for you. This has come up in a couple of different sessions too, and that's these machines. And are they rented? Are they purchased? What's the maintenance agreement plan on them? What's the mechanical support? So guys, to my knowledge, a patient cannot individually buy a next stage machine, nor can a patient individually buy or rent the Tableau machine. So it is all done through your nephrology/dialysis provider. Okay. So you don't have to buy these individually. You're not renting them. In fact, like I just said, you don't have the option. This is all provided for you by the provider that's overseeing and conducting your training and giving you the dialysis. Okay. So there's not like any personal maintenance plans you need to buy as a patient. This is all part of a contract or a bundle, if you will, by your provider. So I just want to alleviate a lot of those questions that I've seen in these threads. It's not your personal responsibility to go out there and buy a machine or rent the machine. And yes, they all come with service plans, service agreements, warranties, contracts. Because as you can imagine, it is a man-made machine and it's prone to breaking down and it will need mechanical support, right? So I just wanted to get that out there and answer that for you. Neil, so you use Tableau. So you don't bring your machine with you when you travel, okay? If you do travel or if you wanted to travel. So talk to us about that lifestyle choice. Why didn't you want to travel with your machine? Why'd you choose Tableau?
Well, I was on Next Stage for a year and a half.
Okay.
I'm in my mid 60s. I'm retired twice. I have a lot of other physical ailments, and it got to the point I couldn't lift the bags anymore. I mean, Next Stage was an awesome machine for me. But for ease, Tableau was just the best choice for dialysis on demand. I don't need it for travel. So the compactness and things like that was not an issue. But it got to the point where I couldn't do the bags anymore. And so this was my better choice. As far as maintenance, if something goes wrong, I call into 1-844 Tableau. They check it out. They have the capability to look at your machine from their end. They can talk you through troubleshooting. They can have you try a few things. If that does not work, they will assign a technician. And for me, it's been the same technician that installed my machine. And they've always been there within 24 hours of my phone call.
Excellent.
The only thing that I do to my machine is, of course, regular maintenance, wipe it down, everything, like you're supposed to. And once a week, do a full chemical.
Yeah.
Other than that, I change 2 carbon filters and a sediment filter, and that is it. I do not touch anything else on the machine.
Could I speak to that? Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you a very similar question, but go ahead.
Sure. So it sounds like Neil, did you do hanging bags? Is that just to understand what you did?
No, I had the Pure Flow for a year and a half while I was at home.
Yep.
But when Adam had mentioned travel, yes, I did take my machine on travel with me to Minnesota from Missouri.
Yep.
And it did work, but it was such a pain for me. I'm in a cabin out in the middle of the woods in northern Minnesota.
Yep.
And I just couldn't maneuver the bags and hang them on the IV pole and do that anymore.
Understood. I wanted to understand because, so just so patients understand, because I know there's a lot of people listening. So if you choose to, and clearly you work with your healthcare team and you figure out what is the right solution for you. Right. When I do my treatment with the Next Stage machine, I don't usually hang bags unless I'm traveling. So there's the Pure Flow that I make a batch and I basically hit like 3 buttons. And so it does take 6 to 7 hours for the batch to make. I'm able to get 3 treatments out of that batch. And so that was, basically I could kind of set it and forget it, if you will. And then you do have to prime the cartridge clearly daily, like you would do with the Tableau as well. But for me, I do travel. And so I do take the machine when I travel. My supplies, my dialysis supplies, so the hanging bags and cartridges would be sent to wherever I'm traveling to within the United States. And then I would bring my ancillary supplies, which are like your needles, your gauze, etc. And you have to be very organized and planned. Again, it's not unicorns and rainbows, but certainly you're able to do that. And so it's good to know that there are options for people, but there is not a heat, disinfect, or any acid or anything that you need to use or work with when you're using the Next Stage machine. And you do have options. So should for whatever reason, you have to leave. There's an emergency. You could take bags with you and your machine and go somewhere. Let's say you forgot to make a batch or whatever reason, there's a problem. You could always hang bags. So for me, I like the option of knowing that there's always a backup should I ever need it. We live in a crazy world right now with natural disasters happening every day, which is, we laugh, but it's really not funny. And even if there's a water main break, you're here in Boston, we're supposed to get like major hurricane winds this weekend. So, it's nice to know that there are options should I ever need it. Hopefully I will not. But it's important to know that there are others options should there be.
Yeah, Vanessa, that's a great point. USA Home Dialysis, we've got a lot of customers in Florida. Yes. And I'm Chicago based. So when we talk hurricanes, this is a foreign language to me. We don't have hurricanes up here. But our customer base in Florida, of course, they love to stay at home. They don't like to travel to clinics. So home dialysis is booming down there. That backup plan, as you just speak to, that knowing where to go, what to take, what are my options is crucial. And I love that you shared about what you do with NextStage. With Tablo, they've got a key, right? It's a USB key.
Yes.
They can take that key out. That key has the entire prescription in it they need. The challenge then would be you've got to find another Tablo machine where you're going, right, to plug into. Yeah. And so both platforms have somewhat of a little bit of restriction on what they can do, where they can go. But I think in the future of dialysis is bright. We're going to figure out better ways to do things, more flexible ways to do things for the snowbirds, the traveling, vacationing patients who want to do this in condos, in rentals, in hotels, right? And so the future is bright with the innovation that's coming out. But again, Vanessa and Neil, thank you guys for sharing those answers. But between the two of you, I want to know, in your opinions, what are the biggest misconceptions of home dialysis? What do you guys want to debunk? What needs to be spoken out? What stigmas are there that you guys want to speak to?
That it's too hard. It's too much work. I don't have time. I have to get rid of my dog. You can't have pets. I don't have the room for everything. You really have to take a look at everything because you can have pets. It's not too hard and you can learn. I've done it. Vanessa's done it. Adam's done it. I mean, it's possible to do. And, don't believe everything you hear. Find out for yourself.
That's great. That's great advice, Neil. I find that the clinic can be a lot like a locker room, right? So if somebody had a really good experience and they go in and share it, everybody thinks, well, that's great, I'm going to do it. If somebody didn't have a great experience, they're like, no way, Mr. Smith or Mr. Lentz, he had a bad experience, I'm not doing it. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions. I think, Neil, you hit a lot of them with, yes, you can have pets. You don't need a care partner to do home therapies. You do need, the approval of your team. And so you do need to work with your team to make sure you can do it nocturnally at night while you sleep. I think the other myth, Adam, is particularly with HHD, people think you need so much space for your supplies. I get about, and yes, I'm little, so let's be truthful here. I get about 12 to 15 boxes a month is about what I get. And really, because I'm just replenishing, and part of it is because I, as a NextStage patient, have backup supplies like we talked about before. So I'm always going to have a little extra supplies, maybe compared to others, in that I usually have a week of backup, and I like to have a week of backup should I need it. But I think one of the myths is that you can work with a lot of the companies to do a schedule that works for you. You could do your supplies monthly. You could do them bi-monthly, meaning every 2 weeks, so that you get a smaller amount of supplies. And then there are patients that might say, you know what, I don't want somebody coming every 2 weeks or every month. I'd rather do this every other month and have more supplies, and they don't have people coming in and out. So I think that is a big misconception that people don't know about. And I also think that people think that you have to be a professional to learn to put needles in, or a professional cannulator. And clearly I'm talking about HHD. You know what? Everybody starts nobody was born a professional cannulator, like, right? Even the master cannulators, they weren't born professional. Everybody has to start and learn somewhere. So when you put a needle in, who knows better if that hurts more than you?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
you will start. And Adam, you might have been the best cannulator, this side of the, Chicago. But the truth is, the patient knows best.
That's right.
When something feels right or wrong. And so giving yourself that empowerment of knowing, no, this doesn't feel right, or this feels good. Honest to God, for someone that I infiltrated many times in center, and I almost hate to say this because I don't want to jinx myself, but the chances of me infiltrating are far few and none, because I know right away if it's good or if it's not good. And so, don't have that misconception that you need to be in a sterile space and you need to be a nurse or a medical technician. You do not. You will have people that will train you and support you and help you get to where you need to be.
That's right. One of the slogans we have for the company I work for is we have these 4 C's: control, choice, convenience, and confidence. We love to restore these things back to our customers and our clients. Pretty much the 4 things you don't get when you dialyze in center, right? Guys, so for Vanessa and Neil, one thing I want to ask you guys, Nelchi mentioned this earlier in the session today. She said, most of my life, I just live and I pay very little attention to my dialysis. I love that. I wrote that down. Explain to me, Neil, and then explain to me, Vanessa, or let's start with Vanessa first. Explain to me, you guys, how the platforms you're on now, how do they allow you to do that? Which is a lot of living and a little dialysis, instead of dialysis just running your life and you've got no control over anything. So unpack that for me, if you will, based on your respective platforms.
Okay. So for me, again, it takes very little for me to prep dialysis. It's putting the cartridge in, right? So that takes about 20 minutes. And then, yes, I will make a batch maybe once or twice a week, if that, actually probably once a week. And that's all I do. And so I'm not doing any like heat or disinfect or dealing with acid or anything. I'm just kind of living my life, right? So I usually set up the machine the night before. It's ready to go. As a matter of fact, if I turned my camera, you would see my machine like over here to the left of me. And like I said, I kind of like look forward to the time at night that I'm watching my series and my shows and, getting my dinner, and I'm living life. And then during the day, I'm working full time. I'm with my kids. We make reservations to go out and living. If there's something that I need to do, I change my schedule so that it works for me. I am not set into anything. And I love what Neil just said about like, I'm just living. And so if there's something that I want to do, I do it. I make it work. I'm not thinking about, oh no, I can't do that. I'm thinking about, okay, yeah, there's some things that I might have to change here and there. But in general, we make it work, right? So I'll give you a great example. And then Neil, this weekend is my mother's 80th birthday. And so we're having a big family party. I'm going to dialyze tomorrow morning, and then I'm going to be off enjoying the weekend with the family and doing things with my mom. And so I'm not living my life to dialyze. I'm living my own life, right? And so that is a big difference. I'm managing myself.
Yeah, like I said before, it just becomes second nature. You don't even think about it. You just do it and just live your life like you normally do. You can set a schedule. For me, I prefer it in the evening. I watch TV in the evening. I'm sitting in my chair doing nothing anyway. So I might as well watch TV. And yeah, I can't get up and do anything, but I'm still fine because I have my water. I have my 65-inch TV and I have my Tableau. I'm good. So it just gives you so much more freedom. You can do it, live your life the way you want to, as best as you can with the disease. I mean, it's never going to be like it was. It'll never be perfect, but it's the best it can be. And you have a lot of input for that to make it the best you can make it for yourself. And the other thing is, I mean, I was born and raised in Minnesota. I don't know how they do it up there when they get 3 feet of snow and you can't go to the clinic. What do you do?
That's such a good point. And also, even with COVID now, right?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that's a big deal. Like really for all patients that do home, you control your environment. You control who's in, who's out. You're not sitting in a clinic, not knowing if the person next to you is exposed, not exposed. There is a sense of security and safety, knowing that you are in your own home environment. And I was just reading the comments. I love what Renard wrote, which was like, something like, what did he say? Now I have to go back and find it. Oh, dialysis is what I do, not who I am. And I love that he said that, right? Because it's something we have to do clearly in order to live. Like there is not a choice there, but it doesn't define who we are. It's a part of who we are, right? It's what we have to do, but it's not who we are. I don't just start with I'm on dialysis. I'm Vanessa, right?
Right.
So
that's great. Guys, on the service line that I work for, we don't use clinics. We don't have patients come in anywhere for training. Everything's in the house. I don't know what it's like for your guys respective providers. So tell me about, and for those obviously on the chat as well, do you go into a clinic? What do you go into the clinic for? Who monitors your access? Are you guys checking your access? Have you been trained to check your access? Talk about those things.
Yes, from the time that you start training for home, a lot of the stuff you're trained to do, like care for your access and, cleanliness. And I mean, I've never had an infection in 3 years.
Great.
I've infiltrated twice. Both of those, one was in center when I first started. And the second time was in the hospital for dialysis related issues. And they infiltrated me in the hospital. I've never infiltrated myself. You go to the clinic once a month. You meet with your nephrologist. You meet with your dietitian. You meet with your social worker and your nurse. And you may not be all in the room at the same time, but you'll have access to them all. And you take care of everything you do there. I pick up some of my supplies while I'm there, ancillary supplies, all that. And other than that, I really have, unless I need something, I call or text with my nurse.
Great. You call and text. And Neil, do you have buttonholes, by the way?
Yes, I do. I'm going back to sharps right now because I'm having some.
Whoa.
we lost Neil again. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So Vanessa, go ahead and pick up with an answer to that question. So yeah, what's your monthly structure like, and how do you manage your vascular access?
Sure. So like Neil, I go once a month.
Okay.
To visit my nephrologist. I like him. I see my nurse, the dietitian, the social worker. So it's kind of like an all in one. And so that is a good setup. I also use the Next to Me. So the Next to Me is Connected Health. So that's connected to my dialysis machine. And so that I can use daily. So I can put in there if I'm having any issues or there's a problem. My nurse is actually really good about looking at it and will call me if there's an issue like, oh, it looks like you got off early, or it says that you did this many liters and stuff. And so I think that really helps because you feel like somebody's, taking care and watching and making sure that things are going well. And so that's pretty easy. That's just an iPad. that is used daily. But on a monthly, basically, I go in and I see my nurse. I was just saying, Neil, that I do pretty much what you do, which is go in on a monthly and visit with my team.
Right.
Sorry, Vanessa, your access, remind me, what's your access again?
So I have a fistula. I do
okay.
not use the buttonhole method. I use the rope ladder method. And I kind of believe in, I'm not going to change what's not broken. I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm going to just continue. And that's why I think it's really important to find what's best for you. And I wouldn't recommend, buttonhole over rope ladder. I think that's a decision that you make with your healthcare team, and you figure out what's right for you. I do want to comment briefly on what Nilcha just put on the comments here about being able to train at home. So I was very lucky when I first trained to do dialysis at home. I did train in my home, and I was very lucky to be able to do that. That is hard to be able to manage, I think, on a larger scale with all the patients going home. There's certainly pros and cons for both being in center as well as training at home. But I do think that it's important for the nursing staff to come home with you, the first couple of times, because when you are in center, it's different, right? Like it's a different atmosphere. And so when you go home, you're like, oh my God, what was it? I think one of the cool things that I just wanted to mention is, we actually just got FDA approval for a Guide Me technology with NextStage, which will also give step-by-step directions for patients that are going home if they have the Guide Me technology, which is a nice reassurance, so that you can go through and make sure that you're setting everything up well. But what I also like as a veteran patient is I believe that they listen, that if you know what you're doing, you can also just, not have to go through each of those pieces, which I think is important because we're all patients at different skill levels. And so I don't think we don't want to waste time if we don't need it, but if we need it, I want to make sure that we're supported. So I like that both ways.
Yeah.
Right. And even with Tableau, I mean, it already has the talk you through the technology, everything, but even so, the machine still takes time to make the batch and do its thing. You can get ahead in the steps, but the machine's not going to allow you to skip anything or do anything unsafe. So, it still takes 20 minutes to set up, no matter how or what I do. But the nice thing about it, if I decide I'm going to do dialysis, from the time I decide till the time I walk into my room, 30 minutes later, there's blood pumping. And that's awesome. So if I miss one of my regular scheduled treatments that I had planned, it's not a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Both Neil and Vanessa, I'm sure you guys can appreciate home dialysis really caters to dialysis on demand. With our organization, we call it vending machine dialysis. You go to your machine when you want to go to your machine, right? You hit the buttons and you get from it what you want. You want aisle A1, you want C6. I mean, you can dialyze at 4 a.m., noon, 9 p.m., nocturnal. You can stack 3 days in a row. I mean, it's really highly customized dialysis on demand. You go to it when you want. And Neil, I think you said freedom. I'm not sure which one of you said freedom, but freedom right at home to choose the convenience, the schedule, the no traveling, right? It's highly variable and customized dialysis in your house. And so I love these answers you guys are sharing. And Neil, to your point, yeah, the Tableau machine, it's we say read it, see it, do it, because there's a narrative, there's a video, and then you execute. So many safety measures built in. You can't go to the next screen until you click that you're done with the screen you're on. So it's really nice. Neil, question for you from the chat. Byron Jackson says, do you get your care through the VA?
No, I do not. It is available through the VA. I don't know if they have a home dialysis program. But everything for me has been with my primary care doctor because of my prior employment. I never had to use, I do use the VA on occasion though.
Okay.
I'm with US Renal.
Okay.
And I was with Fresenius before that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So both of you do solo HHD, correct?
yes.
Vanessa, you're by yourself as well?
So I have a prescription to do solo as well, but I also do dialysis with my husband here as my care partner. So
Yeah.
I do, it depends on, honestly, you know, when he's around, we do it together, but there's many times that he's working or I'm traveling. I travel by myself with the machine. So I can do both prescriptions.
Right. With me, I don't mean to do, I mean to do, I do it solo, that no one else around. My wife is my care partner. She's always within hollering distance if anything goes wrong. But I do everything by myself for the most part.
So here's a topic for Neil and Vanessa that like vaguely has come up a couple times, and that's support partner burnout. Caregiver burnout, support partner, whatever you want to call it, right? Your spouse, your kids, your neighbor, your friend who supports you in dialysis and is there with you during treatments. Can you talk to us about that topic, the caregiver burnout? What do you guys think are some helpful hints for those helping support and provide that caregiver partnership to help prevent the caregiver burnout? What are some things patients can do? How can they support their caregivers at home?
I really don't know how to answer that because, like I said, since I came home, I've done pretty much everything by myself, and I have not experienced that. So okay. I really wouldn't know how to answer that.
So Vanessa.
I have ideas. Of course I do. Okay. So I think there are a couple of things. So first, I really believe that it starts with training. So I am a firm believer that it's wonderful to have a care partner be involved, but they don't need to do everything. So I think when you first start the training, let the patient learn everything and then bring the care partner in for the emergency part. And I mean, clearly it's going to vary, depend on, patient to patient and what abilities you have. But in general, if they can, I would try to have the patient learn everything and bring the care partner in for emergency, maybe rinse back, and then train them. So that's number one. Number two, have a clear vision of what the responsibilities are going to be for the care partner and the patient. So maybe the care partner is going to put in the needles and the patient is going to do, their treatment, and then they're going to break down the machine and throw things away, right? And maybe that changes over time. So a little bit of like roles and responsibilities. Number three, use respite care. There is respite care. So what does that mean? That means if I am the patient and I need a break, or maybe my partner needs a break from me, I can go into my clinic and they'll have everything set up and I do my treatment there for, a couple of times to give my partner a break. So I think it's understanding that there's resources available, but also set the right expectations. It is such a burden if somebody's going to be like, all right, now I got to take care of, my loved one, and I'm going to rotate boxes and I'm going to put needles in, or I'm going to hang bags for PD or whatever it's going to be. Mm-hmm. I think it's setting clear expectations on the roles and responsibilities. It's understanding that there's respite care. It's understanding that sometimes maybe your prescription might need to be changed, whether it's more or less. So it's kind of walking through all of that and do that with your healthcare team so that everybody is speaking the same language and you're not kind of sold something that you didn't understand, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand those pieces. If I could, Adam, I just see in the chat, somebody's asked me a couple of times, what is rope ladder method? And just to be clear, so John, just to answer you, there's two methods that you can cannulate. One is called the buttonhole that you heard Eric speak about earlier. That's when you use a duller needle and you basically kind of using aseptic technique, pick a scab and you're essentially going in the same spot, almost like an earring, right? That's the buttonhole technique. The other technique, which is the one that I used, is rope ladder. So rope ladder is, think of it as you have a ladder and you're using a sharp needle and you're going into different spots, almost like up a ladder. So you go, you do a spot, and then the next time you go up another, couple inches, and you do another spot, and you're kind of rotating those spots. You don't want to be going in the same spot because that can cause aneurysms. But rope ladder technique is using a sharp needle going in different spots like a ladder. So I hope I answered your question, John. I know you asked a couple of times. I want to make sure I got it. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, that brings us to the 1 hour marker here, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, wherever you are in the country. Vanessa, Neil, thank you so much for your input, your anecdotal testimonies, everything you had to share. That brings us to the end of this session, guys. Thank you to our speakers and the audience. Thank you guys for your feedback, your questions. I'm going to stay here on the platform. If you guys, and Vanessa, Neil, you guys are welcome to. Otherwise, it's time for the sponsor showcase. So where you're going to hear from the companies that help make today's event even possible. You're going to learn about their devices and their educational programs. Thank you again, everyone. There are about 118 people present. Go ahead and click on the main stage tab on the left-hand side of your screen to navigate back to the next part of the program. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adam, for facilitating. And Neil, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was nice. Good session.
Yeah, I think it was a great session.
Thank you guys for your input. Thank you so much for your input.
Lots of information.
Vanessa, Neil, if you guys want in the chat to put your contact information for anyone that wants to reach you via email or whatever, feel free to do that. You don't have to, but I'm sure many people have some follow-up questions for you guys. And is your information down below? I don't think so, but again, that's your prerogative.
Because I have a lot of problems with my email.
Oh, okay.
I found an email address that I can use that I don't have any interference with, and I use that just for dialysis stuff, and I don't want to clog it up with.
There you go.
I mean, Facebook is great. I can get on. I'm on Facebook.
Oh, okay. So people can find you on Facebook. That's great.
Right. They look up Neil Lentz on Facebook. It's there. But
fantastic.
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
I mean, the changes that are coming are I'm looking forward to the changes coming down the road.
Yeah,
we've come so far now. I mean, Next Stage was great, and Tableau came along, and they're great. I think Tableau took the best of Next Stage and the best of In-Center and made it a home machine.
Guys in the chat here, Latice Robinson is asking, how do we reach out to Vanessa and Neil? So
I'm going to put my email in there. Okay,
Vanessa will put her email, and then guys, Neil can be reached most appropriately on Facebook. So Neil, is it just Neil Lentz on Facebook?
Neil Lentz. If they look up Neil Lentz on search, they'll find me.
Are you going to have a sweet beard like you do now?
It'll be there.
So I just put my email in. It's vanessa.evans@freseniusmedicalcare.com. So just check your spelling for Fresenius and you can email me.
Thank you, Vanessa. And then I'm going to type in here, find Neil on Facebook.
Awesome.
And if anyone's still on, it looks like 35 people might still be in the chat. My information, guys, just scroll below the black video box there. Scroll down. My information's there, and I'll just copy and paste it if you want to get in touch. But yeah, I mean, Vanessa's a wealth of knowledge on the Next Stage side. Neil and I have a lot of experience here on the Tableau Outset Medical side. But again, the theme of the session, rather the theme of the entire platform, guys, is thriving on your own terms. So this is your choice. Educate yourself, ask questions, ask multiple different people questions, right? Really, really get the information you need to be an informed and empowered decision maker for your own health. So I'll just wait another minute or two here, guys, and then I'll sign off and go back over to the main stage. But
Yeah.
like I said, just another minute. You guys are welcome to leave if you
I'm
need.
going to go to
Okay?
the main stage, but thank you
All
so
right.
much. And it was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Right. Thank
Bye.
you. And y'all have a great day and great to take part and looking forward to doing it again.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Vanessa.